Hi, I'm Donna from Evoca, and in this tutorial we'll be going over the creation of a topological map for our image planes. A topological map is basically a plan on where we think the base placement of our polygons is going to be. As you become more familiar with underlying muscle structure and how the character will deform during animation, it won't be as necessary to create a topological plan, but it is always a good tip to create a guide for the more tricky areas like the face. A good place to start is with anatomy reference. Either a book or a website is fine, as long as the images are clear and the anatomy is correct. A good free reference is Zygote Body. A link for Zygote Body will be available to you in the Learning Spot website. What Zygote Body does is it allows us to strip away the different layers of the body and focus in on areas that are most relevant when modelling. In this case, the face muscles. A quick overview of the website sees a rendered female at the centre of the page with a toolbar to the left. With this toolbar, we're able to switch between the male and the female bodies, as well as use the slide tab to expose the different layers underneath the skin. So that's just this one here. We can slide down and we can see through each level of the body. I like to switch to the side tab and turn everything off to expose the muscle and bone. So we can do that by just hitting this button down here, and it turns everything to the side tabs, and we just slide them all off until only the bone and the muscle remain. Zooming in on the head now, we can see the various muscle groups that make up the face. Just turn the skin layer on a little bit so we can see where the eyes sit. Each muscle has a specific job in order to help us show emotion, talk and eat. Another good thing about Zygote Body is that it allows us to click on each muscle and learn the name. So this is the ocularis oculi, where you can get the temporalis, which is the temple muscle. So you'll pick these things up you tend to pick these things up as you move further into your modelling career. Now, why is this important? Because when we animate, we want our model to move and act like we would expect it to, regardless of whether we're creating a human or an elf or a dwarf. Even the most alien of characters would have a humanized muscle structure to lend believability to the character. With that in mind, let's now turn towards creating our topology map. If we look at our reference here, we need to take note of how the muscles move around the major landmarks of the face, that being the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. We'll move this to the side for now, but leave it open for easy reference as we move into Photoshop. In Photoshop, start by opening your front image plane we created earlier and zoom in on the face. So just using the scroll to zoom and the space bar to shift our canvas around. And as we create a topological plan, we want to mimic the underlying muscles as closely as possible. I find it easiest to start with the eye. So we'll grab our pen tool, so that's just this one down here that looks like the nib of a fountain pen, or you can hit P on the keyboard. And what this will do is we'll be able to draw our lines in without actually using the paintbrush at the moment. We'll get a nice smooth curve. So if we'll click down here in the corner of the eye and drag so we can get our anchor points, this will help us create a curve later, but for now we'll just click and drag so you get the 2 points out. Then click here where the bend would be. It doesn't need to follow exactly right now. We'll come back and we'll fix it up later. And so just clicking and dragging so we can get the corner, the curve. At the corner of the eye, we want to press Alt to bring up the little carrot type looking thing, and just click and drag that anchor point down. So this will change it from a smooth curve to a sharper point, which we want for the corner of the eye. And then we just click here, and then one here for the tear duct, and then down here again. So you can tell for this one our anchor points have actually disappeared. So we'll go over to our pen tool we'll click on the little arrow and we'll go to the convert point tool, and we'll click and drag to get our anchor points back. So, and then clicking and just dragging that one into position so we can get the nice point in the eye. And then we'll hit A to go to our path arrow tool. So that's just this one here. You want the white arrow, not the black arrow, because the black arrow, if we go here, it'll select the entire path. What we want is the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow, and that'll allow us to click just the points that we want to manipulate. So if we move down here, and we'll just position these just a little bit better. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect. It's to give us an idea of how things are going to be moving and where to place our polygons, but we want to get it as close as we can. So if we hit P again to go back to our pen tool, and we'll continue with the ocularis oculi around here. So, and we're not going to draw, just undo that one. So you know you're closing the path when the little circle comes up. So as I was saying, we're not going to draw every single polygon that we'll be using, but we're going to give ourselves a guide as to where we're going to be placing them. So we won't necessarily stick strictly to these lines, because as we move around the model we might find that polygons are placed incorrectly or the shape isn't quite right, but it is to give us a starting point that we can work with. Okay, so we're trying to follow the structure of the face as well, so trying to give the curves where it's needed. Okay, I think that's pretty much okay for the eye. I'm going to bring this one in a little bit more. Alright, so back to the pen tool again. Now we'll move on up to the eyebrow. And so this one here would probably define where the fold of our eye is. So when we blink, we get that nice crease. This one will be where the brow sits. So just following the line of the actual brow itself down into the nose. Just hitting A when we need to adjust. So the bridge of the nose would actually curve up a little bit rather than down. Okay, and again, our pen tool, I'll go back and I'll fix this one up. I'm not happy with that. That's a bit better. Okay, so just P back to our pen tool, and we'll do another line above the brow. So this will help us create the emotion and of when we move our eyebrows. Even the slightest crinkle can convey a lot of emotion. So just getting a nice curve through there. Again, we'll keep moving on up the head. So this one will be a little bit more straighter, almost a straight curve across there. It'll still be rounded. We want to take in the fact that the forehead is actually quite round. And then just moving, I think this will probably be as high as we need to go for the head. Okay, so we'll move back down here to where the eye is, Go to our pen tool, and we want one that goes from the nose down and around. So from there down to around and underneath the chin. So maybe about the middle here. So we go from here to here, and then it'll curve down and around underneath the mouth, the face there, the chin. So we can go back in there and smooth this out a little bit. Now for the nose, obviously you're going to have the bridge of the nose, so it'll curve down and through here. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it helps give you an idea of how the edges will actually flow around the different areas of the body, of the face. Okay, then hitting P again for our pen tool. We'll go from just above where the nostril lies, and again just the nice curve. Now this will actually cause the fold when we smile, I beg your pardon. I think it's called the labial fold. I think it's actually the nasolabial fold, to be exact. But that's that fold there at the corner of the mouth. It doesn't actually hit the corner of the mouth. It actually comes out around the side, so it creates a divot, kind of. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but when you start to animate and you start to remodel, it'll be easier to show you then. Okay, so we'll go down here and probably to just underneath the chin again, so hitting A. So, and we'll position this so it gives us the nice fold. It actually comes a little bit above the nostril, I beg your pardon. So it doesn't actually come out of the corner of the nose. I mean, it can always be good too to have a mirror within reach when you're modeling, because there's no better reference than our own faces. You can have a smile and you can see where the nasolabial fold is. So it's just that one between your cheek and your mouth that gives that line there. And you can also notice that it doesn't actually come out from the corner of your nostril. Okay. We can think that's about right. So moving back to our pen tool, we'll do the one just around the edge of the mouth here. Not on the mouth, there's another one we'll go about here. So that'll help help to define the edge of the mouth, this one. So just above the chin. Moving to the arrow key again, just by hitting A. And trying to position this to give it a nice curve. Okay, so go to P again, and this time we'll do it around the actual mouth. So holding Alt again to bring up our little convert points tool and to give the sharp edge of the mouth, and then clicking in there to finish it off. So we're only going to do half the face. You can do the whole face if you like, but since we're only going to model on one half, there really isn't a lot of need to do the whole head. You can do it for your own personal benefit if you like. But there we go. So now we've only got one set of edge flows, obviously, so there's going to take more than these edges to create a mesh. So we need to have the vertical lines as well as the horizontal ones. So if we move into the pen tool again, we can start joining these up. The easiest one would be to join the corner of the eye down into the base of the nose, or the top of the nostril actually, I beg your pardon. So if we move this up here, you don't want to click directly on the line when you create the new one, because it'll just add to that line, and we don't want that. Just so we want all to keep it, it's easier to keep them all separate for now. Okay, so we'll move from this one here to the cheek, and we'll bring this one down into the top of the mouth. So hit A again so we can shift these around a little bit. You want to keep, now there'll be an eyelid, so this will be, it'll dip in before it comes out to the top of the cheek. And there we go. Okay, so we also need to define the philtrum. So that is the top of your nose. If you have a look in the mirror, you can see a ridge between the base of your nose and the top of your lip. This is called the philtrum. So we'll just go from here to here. Hitting A, we'll just attach that. Now she has quite flat lips across here, so a lot of the people, a lot of us tend to have a more prominent peak in our lips, so then the philtrum normally goes from the base of the nose to the top of this peak, and there's a divot or a valley in between here and the next one on the other side. Okay, going back to the pen tool, we can just continue on creating these ones. So we'll go from here over the cheek and down into the corner of the mouth. So you want to keep them as evenly spaced as possible as well. We'll do this when we're modeling as well as on our topology plan. It just makes for a smoother surface and easier when we take it into other packages like 3D sculpting packages like Mudbox. So go back to P for our pen tool. We'll grab another one from this one here, down across the cheek and down into the corner of the mouth. She has quite prominent cheekbones. We'll also take, just not from exactly the corner, but just underneath it. Just clicking off so we can start a new line. And we'll go down here into the side of the face. Okay. We'll continue this one along. We'll create from here to here. And just shift this one up a little bit, so it probably wouldn't join. And then we'll just have one about here to the center of the chin. Okay. Just move these around a little bit more just to define the shape a little bit better. Now obviously we couldn't have this massive gap here either. So what we'll do here is we'll join from here down to around the side. And again, just adjusting to make the shape a little bit better. Now when we model, we'll probably add another line in here, but for now we only want to do the major points. So if we go from here to here, we want to keep it as square as we can, so each one needs to be as many full-sided shapes as possible, but you will have areas where there are triangles, and we try to keep these to a minimum to stop pinching when we animate, as long as we put them in areas that don't have a lot of animation when we do it. It's okay. But again, this is just a guide so we can get an idea of where we're going to place everything. So just moving between the pen tool and the arrow tool, no, direct selection tool, sorry, so we can fill in all these areas. And onto the forehead. So just straight up the forehead. We want to keep a nice curve, obviously. It'll follow the brow and the forehead structure. She has a very square head. Move this one over a little bit more. And this one will come from about here. So you'll have that dip in between the brow. And just one more line in here, I think. Just spacing these out a little bit more. Okay, so now we have the paths laid out for our topology plan. So we want to go to our brush tool now so we can paint these in. We'll pick a small brush size, so maybe around 5, and a bright color. So I'm just going to use this pink. So you can double click on that and just pick whatever color you like, as long as it's a high contrast with the background, and we'll create a new layer. Now we'll go to our paths tab. I like to keep all of mine together so for easy reference, but yours might be separate. If it is, you'll just have to go to this icon here, which will be your paths tab, or you can go to Windows Paths. Alright, so with that layer selected, we want to select, grab either our direct or our path selection tool, either one is fine. We want to select all of them, so just drag and surround your paths, and then we'll go up here, make sure our selected layer is the one we just created. We'll right click on the path and we'll go stroke path. This will bring up a pop-up, and you want to make sure the tool says brush, so just click on that and select brush and hit OK. So that'll take using our brush, so the small size that we just set up earlier, and it'll paint all of those strokes, the paths that we set up with that brush. Now if we click off the paths, the paths disappear from the screen, so they don't get confusing, and we now have our topology plan all ready and ready to go. So we just name this thing to lines, or actually it's probably best to call it guides. We hit OK. I can zoom out so we can see everything. We go File, Save As, and JPEG, and we'll call this one Selena Front Lines. Hit Save. Just OK, and that's it, you're done.